Coming to you live from a barely secured cabin in the snowy woods, it's this week's Apocalypse. I'm your co-host, Kevin Lenihan. With me, as always, is John Ferris. John, how are you doing today?
Fine. Again, fine apart from our current predicament.
You're so often fine regardless of the circumstances, John. You are a rock.
You know, it's... You have to expect these things every week.
Yeah. It's sort of it's almost like it happens like clockwork, isn't it?
Yeah.
But,
Like, I mean, we go on this little retreat, and all of a sudden things go a bit south.
Yeah. I mean, well, we did come up here with like 6 other people, but the problem was we did not bring enough snacks.
Yeah.
That's kind of a big deal. So. We had plenty of food, but we ran out of Doritos, and that was sort of the beginning of the end for some of these guys. So, long story short, one guy ate everybody else.
Yep. You know how it goes. You're at a party, you run out of Doritos, and then cannibalism.
Someone's been hitting the buckfast too hard, and they just get too enthusiastic, and then the next thing you know, there's 15 people in a stew pot. So we locked him outside. But he started getting real weird. Started shouting about the hunger. Oh, I'm so hungry. But it might just be greedy, but
it might just be the buckfast.
But I found a weird book in this cabin that we've taken refuge in. It's not in English. I don't know what language it's in, but there's lots of pictures, and I've managed to divine from the fun pictures in the book that this guy may or may not be a Wendigo?
Right?
Yeah.
And what, pray tell, is a Wendigo?
I have no idea, but there's a little stack of videos here. And one of them is literally called Wendigo, so, I assume the other two are related. So, let's see, we have from 2020, so quite recent.
Yeah.
Directed by Bruce Wemple. We have The Retreat. Which could be very closely related. I mean,
it ties in quite well with our own retreat.
I know. I mean, so I assume this one's going to be. We'll probably just watch this, and then that'll be enough. But just in case, we could also then watch Larry Fessenden's Wendigo from 2001.
Yeah.
So that should be very helpful too. Those I can imagine those will be full of relevant information.
It's literally called Wendigo. It's probably just an informative.
Yeah, it has no right.
Maybe?
It has no right not to be informative.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have from 1999, even further back in history. We have Antonia Bird's Ravenous.
Well, that is what this fella is showing. He's showing symptoms of being quite ravenous. So
yes, indeed.
It's always a good fallback if these other two don't work out.
Indeed, we always need to watch 3 because just in case. It's always good to have redundancies.
The rule of 3s.
Okay, so let's sit down, try to ignore the rabid maniac outside and watch these movies. Alright, well, he's scratching at the door now and he's trying to get his way in, but it looks pretty sturdy. So I think we've probably got a little bit of time before he manages to get in here and eat the flesh off of our bones. So... John, then what did you think of Bruce Wemple's The Retreat?
Well, I can sum up The Retreat with like a sentence, basically.
Oh, brilliant.
Or a couple of words.
Oh man, we're going to have to spend no time on this one then. This must have been just the best one
actually
to pick, right?
Yeah, well, it's 4 words exactly will explain this movie.
Ooh.
Ominous music.
Right.
Snow crunching. That is all that fucking happens in this movie.
That's true. This movie was an absolute void. Yeah. There was nothing to this movie, and it was like I kind of liked. I guess I didn't really like the film as such, more as where the film was shot.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, even the cinematography is kind of like it's okay. There are like really good shots, but when you see the setting. It's like, how could you not, in fairness? You're literally just pointing the camera at the scenery. There's nothing really outstanding about any aspect in this movie.
The landscapes were lovely landscapes, but that's just because they just shot it where they shot it. It was a good choice to shoot it there, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought this film was devoid of a story, really.
Yeah.
Or
it felt like it was a short story they were trying to stretch out, and we've come across this many times where you feel that, like, you know, this movie's it's less than just under an hour and a half, and it feels like double that. It just feels like nothing's happening. Again,
I rarely check the run times when we're watching these movies, and the fact that you said it was less than an hour and a half, I'm actually finding it a little hard to believe. But I'm now looking at it, and you're right, it's an hour and 28 minutes, and that probably includes the credits that I didn't watch.
Yeah,
so
I couldn't wait to turn this movie off when I was done.
Yeah, it was really dull and boring. The acting was not great.
No,
the dialogue was poor, and you know what, John? I feel like it was sort of laughable at times. And they did that thing that sometimes I just hate when it doesn't pay off, and it doesn't pay off in this. Where they're like, is this really what's happening, or is it just a dream?
Yeah, because even if you were invested, as you say, there's no payoff with that. It doesn't feel warranted. It doesn't feel justified. It just kind of comes in, and it has no real bearing, and it makes you feel like you've wasted, like that first kind of third of the movie. It feels like you wasted your time.
Yeah,
because it does kind of come in and go, oh, look, his mate's still alive. Oh, Jesus.
Ooh, it was just the drugs.
Yeah.
It was like sometimes they use that as an excuse in movies to be like, we want to do something dramatic, but we don't want to actually commit to it.
Yeah.
Because we don't know where to go from there. So we'll just have someone wake up and, oh, that didn't happen, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's like, it's the equivalent of, it's like Knots Landing or whatever, where it's like, there's a character who's died, and then the years before, and then the woman wakes up and is like, oh, Bobby, and he comes out of the shower and she's like, oh my, and then it ends. You're like, oh wow. But no, I think that's really insulting to your audience. I think
what did you think of the creature effects in this?
It looked absolutely god awful. I really thought that thing was embarrassing looking. It looked so stupid, because I was wondering, because they showed the creature itself on the box.
Yeah, well, that's almost like the minion of, I'm just going to call it the knight who says knee.
You know, that's exactly what I was thinking, because I watched the Holy Grail, Monty Python's Holy Grail last week, because of all our sort of recent Terry Gilliam talk.
Yeah,
I watched the Holy Grail, and that is exactly
towards the end. Every time it showed the kind of main Wendigo creature, I would just go knee. Because that was the only way to make this movie bearable for myself.
Yeah,
and then like his little minion creatures who do like the gutting and do the more physical attacks. It looks like they're trying to kind of copy that Evil Dead, like the balls in the eye look, the ping pong ball eyes that are just painted. But it's so noticeable. I don't know, because the cameras we have nowadays are all HD and all that, 4K, blah, blah, blah. But it just doesn't work with this. Like, this is a guy with a mask on, and it's very clear, and it just looks so cheap and so rubbish. And they're really unthreatening as well.
Yeah, I was just, the whole way through, I was just kind of bored, and every time the wee monster showed up, I was just like, well, this is kind of embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't look good.
No,
it just looks bad, actually. And it just felt like it was going nowhere, and then it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah,
and then they try to have like a shock ending with a character you don't care about, who's off on his own, that has no relevance to the movie.
That's very cheap. Yeah, that last shot is you can see it coming a mile away. It is just so derivative. It's so obvious, and like even the effects they have on the paintings, where like everywhere he looks, there's like these paintings of Wendigos, and then they have this like really cheap effect of like twisting it. It like warps the picture, and it always looks really rubbish.
It looks crap. Yeah, everything about the production design in this movie was like really underwhelming, I guess. And the characters were boring. I just did not like it. And also, it didn't really tell us much about Wendigos really at all. No. I feel like that's just like they took some of the imagery that they liked and wanted to put that in the movie, but it didn't really feel. I mean, they do a bit where he's like in his drug trip, he's like eating his mate. Yeah. But then that didn't happen.
So I was hoping that, because that's quite early on. That's when he is having the, he gets into that cabin. He's having hallucinations and stuff.
Yeah, they try to do an Evil Dead 2 thing where he's talking to himself in the mirror.
Oh, that's so bad. I forgot about that.
Yeah, and I was expecting them to go all the way into Evil Dead 2 territory and have the mirror guy come out and grab him. Yeah. You know? But they didn't quite go that far. I almost would have probably liked it better if they just full on just done that.
Yeah, if they lent into the ridiculousness.
Yeah. But outside of that, like, I don't know if I really have many more thoughts on the film other than that I was bored and it was disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, there is very little you can say about this movie. I mean, again, I just go back to, the soundtrack seems to consist of one tone. It's just this ominous sound that, and it's not even like they kind of have it playing throughout. They pause it a few times randomly, it seems like there's no real justification, and then it just kind of creeps back in and it adds nothing, and after a while it started to just distract me more than anything. I was kind of almost laughing, going like, really, this sound again, this ridiculous noise. But it's, again, like yourself, I don't think I have much more to say about this movie other than avoid it.
Yeah, do not watch The Retreat. Now, there's another film called The Retreat, which seems like it's probably more worth your time, but it's got nothing to do with Wendigos.
Yeah, we should state this is the 2020 Retreat. So
yeah, there's a 2021 one, and there's another movie called The Retreat from like the 90s as well. So don't avoid those because this movie is bad. But this movie is bad. Okay, the scratching at the door has stopped. And I think he's just maybe sneaking around the side, trying to look another way in here. There's a very real possibility he's in the house already. Ooh. So I guess we just better... Nope. It's okay. Nothing there. Okay. Alright, John.
Okay, so for now.
let's just concentrate. And John, you tell me what you thought of Larry Fessenden's Wendigo from 2001.
2001's Wendigo makes The Retreat seem like, I don't know, Halloween. I was shocked with how bad this movie is. I was expecting some kind of like B movie, like schlocky funniness, but with this one, and it's literally nothing. It is even worse than The Retreat in the sense that nothing actually happens in this movie until like the last 5 minutes, if even.
Yep.
And even that's bad.
Yeah, I paused it at one point because I wanted to see how far in it had gotten because I felt like nothing Wendigo related had really happened.
No.
And they had the cheek to call the movie Wendigo.
Yeah.
And yet, I would question whether there's really even a Wendigo in it. Now, there are some comical moments where they have like a skeleton on strings running about the place, sort of, but it's not really there.
And then the guy in the deer onesie, dancing. That? I don't know.
He's jigging about behind a tree. It's just like, right, well, we made this thing, but the only thing we can do on it is make the sort of forelegs/arms move, so we'll just do that.
I kind of wish they'd just stuck with that and it's like had this guy in a onesie running about the woods murdering people, because it was hilarious. And unfortunately, as we say, like it's this brief moment. I don't know, it's like a revenge thing. I'm not even sure. It seems to imply that the dad becomes the Wendigo or something.
I think that's what they're getting at.
And to be honest, at that point, you don't even care. At this point in the movie, like if we didn't have to watch this for for this podcast, I would have turned it off. There's not a
Yeah.
chance I would have got through this movie.
I think at the point at which you were an hour in and nothing had really happened except for angry locals are mad at city folk.
Yeah.
You know, outside of that, it was just a void of just... It was just rubbish. I think they were trying... I felt like they were trying to do a sort of The Shining Danny Torrance thing with the kid
Yeah.
and the dad in it. And maybe like that's why this kid was in tune with whatever spirits were in the woods and was seeing this this man who was telling her about the legend that no one else could see. Ooh. But he was weirdly wearing a boiler suit, like he looked like some dude who just walked out of the mechanics across the street and just thought, I'm going to tell this kid about Wendigos.
Yeah.
And then it was like, but there's no one else who works here. Yeah, that was so laboured and rubbish. And I was hoping they were going to lean heavily into the Shining thing because it felt like they were ripping off the Shining, to be honest, for that part of the film.
I mean, even stuff that happens in this movie has no real consequence. Like, the gunshots that keep kind of appearing in their house. They just like it's always bullet holes. Really, like they always, because you never hear or see these gunshots happening. It's always like later. Yes, okay, that's the whole reason the sheriff guy goes to the kind of antagonist fella.
Yeah.
But like there's really it just seems
the
really
only character whose name I remember, Otis, the grumpy mustache man.
Yeah, they said it quite a lot as well. Yeah. But I mean, I was expecting something a bit more interesting because the guy who directed and wrote the video game Until Dawn, and I'm not saying Until Dawn's like amazingly written, but it kind of knows what it is, and it
extremely knows what it is. That's the reason that I had hope for this film as well. I was like, because Until Dawn takes the Wendigo thing and actually leans into it extremely hard.
Yeah,
which is maybe Until Dawn was like a make good for himself, where he was like, I didn't do Wendigos really in the movie Wendigo, but I'm gonna do Wendigos now. God damn it!
Yeah,
and he really does. Like I will say this is very dangerously going to become a review of Until Dawn, but I love that game. I think it's
to be honest, I don't think that's a problem because there's not much to say about Wendigo 2001. No. And as you say, like, it does kind of feel like he's making up for making this absolute fucking trash fire of a movie.
Well, I would like to say to him that I accept your apology, and you made up for it. You made up for it in spades with Until Dawn, because Until Dawn was so much fun. It was this perfect interpretation into a video game of what a sort of rubbishy sort of teen or just post-teen sort of horror movie in the woods should be.
Yeah.
Because it was like they had all the archetypes nailed, and they have all of like they have this sort of the bait and switch of like you think it's one thing and then no, it's this other thing, and we're leaning into the other thing really hard.
He actually plays a character in it as well who's like another kind of red herring type thing. He plays the flamethrower guy.
Yeah, he's actually a good. I've seen him in other things. He's in a movie called I Sell the Dead, where he plays a grave robber who is like one of those guys, Resurrection Man. It's kind of loosely based on Burke and Hare. Yeah. But it's about the corpses that they're stealing. Some of them reanimate, and they're like weird zombies. It's actually quite a good film, and he's great in it. He's just such a piece of shit in it. He really often plays pieces of shit. He
seems to like playing pieces of shit.
He was in this weird thing that was on Adult Swim. He might have directed it himself, actually, that Too Many Cooks, where it's just the intro to a TV show.
Yeah.
And he's in that. He's the killer in it, who's like murdering people with an axe at some point, and it's really weird. So he's all right. He's been in so many things, and he's made so much stuff, but this film is... Again, there's not much that separates it from The Retreat for me, in that it was boring and nothing really happened in it.
Yeah,
really.
There's no real characters, and I mean, they had good enough actors to to play these roles.
Yeah.
They
They did. They had some people I recognized.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I know her. I know him.
Yeah.
I know who these people are. They're good actors.
I mean, the kid from Malcolm in the Middle didn't really do much. Like, he just kind of sat there staring blankly.
He just, I think they were with him. It just felt so much like we want this kid to seem kind of like Danny Torrance in The Shining. Yeah. Where he was the way he was talking to himself sometimes, and just the way he looked around, and the fact that he was like, "Oh, I'm learning things about the evils of this place, and no one listens to me when I tell them it's evil," But ultimately, I think this film is again. I was going to say I hate to use this terminology, but I've used it so much that I guess I don't. But it is kind of a wet fart. It is kind of I think this is going to be something, and then it's just nothing and slightly ugh.
Yeah. I mean, I'm struggling to even think of a positive thing that I can say about this movie. It literally, the editing's poor. There's no real cinematography. It is kind of ugly to look at. I mean, this
TV movie.
Yeah, I mean, this movie out of the three that we've watched is the most modern. Or no, sorry, it's not. It's the second most modern. Sorry, but it's 2001, and it looks like it was made in the 80s.
Yeah, it's kind of like what we were saying about The Man from Earth last week, where it was it looks like it's I couldn't stop bringing up Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman all the way through that, because it looked like something off the TV.
Yeah. And
this movie doesn't quite look like that. It maybe does look like a made-for-TV movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just.
Do you know what was annoying me? This is a real minor thing of all the things that I can pick apart with this movie. What was annoying me was the time scale of when they first get to that cabin, because the car breaks down essentially, it's run into a ditch and all that, and then it's already dark at this point, and then they get home, and then he plays with the kid. He does a spelling test thing with the kid, and then they have dinner, and all this shit happens, and it keeps happening.
It seemed like it was already the dead of night. Yeah, but then they're sitting down to have dinner, and they're carrying on. You're
just what the fuck is going on here?
But it had to be nighttime when they have their accident with the. It has to end up being nighttime.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they can be more intimidated by the local yokels.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just. It's not great.
Yeah.
It feels weird to say this, but instead of watching this movie, maybe play Until Dawn instead.
Play Until Dawn. It's a really good. At least it, as you said, it embraces this Wendigo thing, and it kind of, it tries. It seems like this movie doesn't even try.
Yep. Until Dawn has enthusiasm. This movie felt like it was tired and couldn't be bothered. Well, we've barred the door and boarded up the windows, but now I can hear a sort of a burrowing sound underneath the house. So I think our good nameless friend is maybe making his way towards us with alarming speed. So it's good that we're getting through these as quickly as we are. So on that note, John, what did you think of Antonia Bird's Ravenous from 1999?
I mean, this is definitely an improvement from the last two movies.
Mm-hmm.
That can be said. I was still very disappointed with this movie. I didn't realize that I'd seen it before until I started playing it, and the whole opening sequence, oh yeah, and it all came back to me. But and I remember liking it, but rewatching it, I found so many glaring problems with it. One that really kept really pissing me off was the editing of. They had this a reverse shot thing that they overused all the time. It just seemed really over the top for what they were doing. It was always just one character's face back to another, and about 6 times, when once or twice would have done, or something else would have been more interesting. I thought the music was really bad for, like, really bad choices for. I mean, I only found out kind of after I watched this because I wanted to see kind of what the reception of this movie was at the time, and I didn't realize it's meant to be a comedy. It's like a dark comedy, but I didn't find it that funny. There was a few like moments that I chuckled, and I do like dark comedies. It wasn't that I was turned off by like, oh, but they're cannibals. This is horrendous. Like, you know, I'm well up for a comedy about cannibals. But yeah, I didn't find it funny, so I don't think it kind of did its job as a comedy, even a dark one. But I mean, the performances, and I think like the first third of this movie are very strong. I really like the beginning, and then it kind of, I think the point where it falls down, it starts to kind of fall down for me is when they get to the cave with Robert Carlyle's character, and the twist is revealed, and then this like banjo bluegrass music plays during like this it's meant to be intense chase sequence, and I don't know, was this meant to be part of the comedy? Was this meant to be funny? But for me, it just didn't work, and I don't know. I wanted to like this movie much more than I ended up liking it.
Yeah. Well, I can say that I really like this movie a lot.
Yeah.
And I did think it was funny, and I love the music because like I think that's the part for me where it becomes apparent that it's a comedy. Yeah. Where they have the twist and he's chasing, and the music is ludicrous, and like the whole film is, and I guess you can fall either side of this obviously, but it's the fact that it's sort of grim and serious and also extremely goofy at the same time, pretty much constantly.
Like,
I felt like
for me it just felt tonally awkward. Like it just never settled on a tone. And I mean, again, yeah, you know, you could say that's the whole point, is that, you know, that's where the comedy's being derived from. But I didn't think it was strong enough that way. You know, it just always felt like it was flip flopping. And I mean, not to say I did enjoy certain aspects of it, and I think one of the main things is the performances. Guy Pearce and Robert Carlyle in particular. Wasn't so fussed on David Arquette and the wee religious guy.
Yeah,
but he kind of served his purpose. I did enjoy his like he was licking me line. That was
yeah, that bit. Like, I think this is one of the, we've seen him before in Solaris, Jeremy Davies.
Yes,
and he often gets typecast as jittery, nervous weirdos.
Yeah.
And he is once again in this film typecast
jittery,
as a jittery, nervous weirdo. I think well cast as a jittery, nervous weirdo in this particular instance. Because I guess like the whole thing is that like it's kind of like it's a place where they send people who are sort of useless.
Yeah.
Or they don't want around. I mean, that's the whole point, is they've sent Guy Pearce's character here because even though he's been awarded this medal for bravery, his commanding officer knows that he's not brave at all.
Yeah.
And that the way that he went about doing the thing he got the medal for was maybe actually somewhat disgraceful or cowardly.
Yeah.
And it just sort of worked out for him and he got lucky, but he's shuffling him off because he knows, like, and he's being weird in front of all the other officers because it seems like he's like off. He refuses to eat meat, and he's really aggravated around it now. Yeah. Because of the thing that happened. So I like that stuff. And again, as you say, I definitely agree with you. I think the performances of Robert Carlyle and Guy Pearce are so strong.
Yeah.
They're brilliant. There's one particular moment especially that I enjoyed with the two of them where Guy Pearce's character is bleeding a lot and they're sitting down to dinner.
Yes.
And there's Robert Carlyle and Jeffrey Jones, who plays the Colonel. They're both sort of civilly sitting down, well dressed, with their food in front of them, being very like formal, while Guy Pearce is sitting there also at the table, coughing up blood and looking like he's about to die. And like that scene I thought was just excellent. Because it was just this great contrast. Like, they were acting like everything's normal and great while he's coughing up blood and looks like he's going to die in the corner. Yeah. I thought that was great. And
it's probably like there's probably a deeper meaning there of like a bit of satire about kind of etiquette, I suppose, and kind of these airs and graces that we put on, and yet there's the three of them eating human flesh,
eating people. Yeah, but I like that about it. I like that weird contrast, and I like that the music was like silly and inappropriate.
See, it took me out of the moment. That was the thing. Yeah, like that's what annoyed me about it. Is like I was very aware that, like the scene lost all tension. I think I would have preferred it played straight, because it wasn't like it wasn't kind of ridiculous or slapstick enough to be kind of that kind of funny, like that, like almost Naked Gun. Like it's nowhere near that kind of level of slapstick, but it also wasn't serious enough that the kind of like the joke, the kind of silliness landed for me when it did. Like it seemed to be in that like wee middle road where, to me, it just felt like it couldn't pick a lane. It just kind of would decide, oh, now it's going to be a bit more lighthearted, and now it's super serious. You have to take him serious, and it's just like, no, like you're literally playing this ridiculous banjo music, and I can't get invested in this chase. It's like I don't feel like anyone's in danger, really.
Yeah. See, that's what I liked about it. Was it just like it felt like it didn't? I felt like, to me, like, not that anyone was in danger, but that everybody was doomed and whatever. It didn't matter. And like, because I just think it was watching Robert Carlyle scurry after a guy like Jeremy Davies who's running away while this silly music was playing, I found incredibly funny. I just thought that was really, really good. And the fact that every time he showed up, the silly music come on, and it was like, okay, this is actually funny, because his character goes from being like this sort of like survivor who's like, traumatized or whatever, all of a sudden to being like, ha ha ha, I'm just gonna eat yous all. And I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Yeah. And I mean, it's you can see a couple coming a mile away as well.
Oh yeah.
Well, and especially, like, I mean, they telegraph it so much whenever they get there, and he's like getting all jittery and like but again, like that, I mean, that was one of the scenes that I felt was kind of ruined by that kind of shot reverse shot, like overuse.
It goes on a bit too long.
They do so much, like, and there's another point where Guy Pearce's character is watching David Arquette's, and then he kind of has this like he daydreams that he jumps him and eats him, and I thought it would have been a better shot, just not to have this like shot reverse shot thing, but just have that scene play out and then cut to Guy Pearce looking out the window to know that, and then maybe like another shot of David Arquette, so oh right, that didn't happen. But I don't know, the edits in it just, again, it kind of like the music for me, because it wasn't just that bluegrass music. There was other music. There was like an electronic kind of sound, and one that just completely I felt was misplaced as well. And then there was like a bassy one whenever they were going into the cave. That I like, a lot of the music I just didn't find appropriate, or didn't, like, again, just took me out of it. And again, with the editing, I couldn't get into the movie after like around about the like a third way in. I was just like, no, this isn't working for me. Yeah,
I think I enjoyed the fact that the music was inappropriate. I think that's what I liked about it, is that the music felt really out of place. I think that just lent itself to the absurdity of what was happening. It felt more absurd than anything else, of everything that's going on, to the point where I just went all in on the absurdity of it, and thoroughly enjoyed all of that stuff. I thought it looked nice for the most part. It is, I don't know if it's like maybe the editing not so great.
I mean, the editing's not great, but the cinematography in this one is pretty good. Like, and I mean, very much like The Retreat, but I would say there's a bit more, I don't know, where the settings kind of done a lot of the work, but also, like, I think there is better shots in this from a cinematography standpoint. Like, there is a lot more kind of talent on show in that aspect.
Yes, in every aspect, this, I know we're not onto that portion, but in every aspect, this movie is better than the other two movies that we watched, certainly.
I mean, this is a movie, like, whether you like it or not. Like, I would almost argue the other two aren't.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I mean, I could always do without David Arquette, really, generally speaking.
Yeah, he just seems like a weird addition.
Yeah, it's strange. It's his character even being in there feels like forced in, maybe, I don't know. But I kind of like everybody else. I think Jeremy Davies is well cast. I think Guy Pearce and Robert Carlyle are the focal point of the movie, and rightly so.
Yeah.
Guy Pearce's performance is great as a man who has crossed over the edge and is just destroyed.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's a man who's been traumatized by war and has given up a long time ago, and he's that for the whole film.
Yeah.
And
like it's a fun idea, this whole, like, you eat the person, you get their strength and all this, and like absolutely ridiculous as well.
Yes.
It is, his whole thing of how he got decorated was he was like lying under these dead bodies, and like the blood was pooling in his mouth. And it's like,
yeah, and they sort of took him back, and that's how he got behind enemy lines, as it were, and then was super strong and crazy, and murdered all the soldiers.
But yeah, like I do, again, it's another one on paper that I like more than what we got, really.
Yeah,
but,
well, I'm gonna stay firmly in the camp of I still really like this film. I like how it looks, and I really like the performances in it. I think that's it for me.
Yeah.
That's where this film lives and dies, and I think it does well. The music, yes, is silly, but again, I like that the music was silly.
Yeah, it kind of seems to be whether or not you kind of enjoy the comedy aspects of it. Like, for me, it just didn't resonate. It just didn't hit me. Like, it might have been just the fact that I wasn't aware it was meant to be a comedy, but I was kind of like, you shouldn't have to be told either. Like,
well,
if that's the case, then put a laugh track in.
Indeed. Perhaps, John, the case is just that I am more easily amused, which makes me sound like a simpleton, but hey, I'll take it. I don't care.
Or maybe I'm just a joyless fucker.
Nah, that's not true.
I don't laugh.
That's not true. Okay, well, he's definitely under the floor now. He seems to be working on some floorboards over there, trying to get up and in. But I guess we could try and get all these boards off and run out the door, or I don't know. They're probably pretty fast Wendigos, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. We'll need to look into that in a minute. But before that happens, John, while he's scrambling away in the corner there, which of these did you think was the best film?
Talk about pointless questions. I mean, we said earlier, the only one that is an actual film seems to be Ravenous.
Yeah.
As much as it didn't resonate too much with me. It has good elements in it. And yeah, the other two are just laborious to get through. It is. Yeah. I would honestly prefer watching paint dry.
Yeah. Ravenous is definitely the best one. I mean, for me, I actually genuinely really liked it.
Yeah.
But even if I had disliked Ravenous, it would be better than Wendigo or The Retreat. In many ways, I feel like the other two films aren't even really about Wendigos.
No, I mean, it kind of seems tacked on a wee bit.
Yeah.
Especially in Wendigo, like it just...
Especially the one that's called Wendigo has barely any Wendigo-related stuff in it, really, except some guy talking about them.
Yeah.
It's... Ugh.
I mean, I do enjoy the ridiculous special effects when they appear, but it is literally blink and you'll miss it.
Yeah.
As well, and the only reason I like them is because it looks like a guy in a deer onesie, as we said earlier.
Yeah, it's a guy in a deer onesie just shaking his arms around a little bit in an embarrassing way, which if that had been like the lion's share of the film, I think that could have been something to really appreciate.
Oh yeah. I would have loved that, I think, but and the Retreat's just like a modernized version of that movie in the sense that nothing really happens. They try to go for this like more psychological route to know that it's all in his head and he's the drugs and he doesn't like that his friends getting married and blah blah blah, and there's a bit of a homoerotic undertone thing going on at one point, but then half of it just kind of either goes nowhere, gets ditched, or it's frustrating.
Yeah, with The Retreat, it's like, it's something that has annoyed me in other films. There's another film that was actually made in the Republic of Ireland called Shrooms.
Yes.
That is one of those movies where, people take drugs and then stuff happens and then you're like, oh, but what's really going on? Is it drug trips or what? And that's actually just really frustrating.
Yeah.
Most of the time, because you're like,
it can be done well, but
yeah.
I mean, you need to know what you're doing. You need to have some message. You need to have some through line that you're going for, and The Retreat doesn't. Maybe they do. If they do, then they just fail to kind of hit it. They fail to hit the mark. But it feels like they don't have any real message to portray at all.
No. If there was a message, I missed it. Maybe don't go out into the woods in the winter and take a bunch of drugs.
You dumb fuck.
Because you might, apart from the fact that, if that was me, I probably would have frozen to death before anything happened. Yeah.
But you're literally somewhere you need to have your wits about you. And I know this is kind of the whole, especially in horror movies, like, characters generally just make these poor decisions and really stupid decisions. It's kind of infamous. It's an infamous genre for having people shouting, like, "Why the fuck are you doing that, you idiot?"
Yeah, don't go in there. Why would you go in there? Don't be silly.
Yeah, because the movie needs to happen.
Yeah, exactly. We need to get on to the next thing where this guy's getting his eyeballs ripped out or whatever, so he has to go in there. But yeah, character motivation is a problem.
Yeah.
You need to at least gin up. Tacked on is what the Wendigo stuff feels like in both of those films. Really.
And I should have mentioned earlier as well, like, I found it really funny that any time in The Retreat where they were, like, looking into the woods and you'd be, like, taking the character's perspective, so seeing through their eyes, as soon as the music stinger would happen, I go, oh, I missed it. Where was the Wendigo? So I rewinded back a few times and go, oh, there he is in the corner. It's like it turns into Where's fucking Wally rather than a horror movie. Like, it's kind of ridiculous. Yeah,
so basically, in order to enjoy The Retreat, John, you had to turn it into a fun game for yourself.
But I don't know. Did you have that problem? Like, did you see
I missed it nearly every time? Nearly every time I missed it.
And I think that's a real. I think that highlights how badly made it is. The fact that the stinger music is telling me when I should have been like, oh god, there's a thing there. We're
having the stinger at all, I think, is the mistake. That kind of thing is like, maybe just hold for a bit longer on the scene where it is somewhere obscured there,
or it moves away.
Notice it,
let it move away. Yeah,
So
then you're like, oh fuck, I didn't even notice that was in the background the whole time.
Oh, it was there the whole time. Whoa,
And even then, I don't think it would have. It probably wouldn't have helped this movie because it doesn't grab the attention anyway. But like we've said before, we love that in horror movies whenever there's something in the background or something just there that kind of moves slightly, or there's no like real, well, definitely no stinger music, but there's no indication to like let you know it's there, rather than like a wee slight movement or something like that, and I think that always works well. But they couldn't even manage that.
It was done really well in The Conjuring 2.
Yes, I think we mentioned that. I think that was the very one we mentioned before.
That's the best example of that sort of, oh my god, that was there the whole time and I didn't even notice. But they do the thing where they hold on it long enough that you will notice, but you will notice just in time before the cut.
They had a bit of that in Hereditary as well, as much as that is a very flawed movie, I found, especially then. But they had like people just standing in the dark, like just almost so that your eyes are kind of like, is that a person or is that like a lamp or something?
I think he did it really well. The Woman in Black, which is not necessarily an amazing film, but it's an okay horror movie. It's not bad. There was a really bad sequel of it, but we're not even going to talk about that. But The Woman in Black does it a lot. And it is, whenever you notice it, it's fun where you just be like, oh, she's been standing behind him in the shadows for like 2 minutes, and I didn't notice. And maybe you didn't even notice. I've seen that film like twice, I think now, and the second time around, it was like, oh, well, she's there. You know, that kind of thing can be obnoxious, though. There's that TV show, The Haunting of Hill House, on Netflix, and the first season they did that a fair bit. And it was clever when they did it there, and then people started noticing it, and people started writing articles online about it, about like, here's all the ghosts you missed in The Haunting of Hill House. And then when it came to the second season, every single bloody shot had a ghost hidden somewhere in the background, like constantly.
And I think
to the point where I was like, there's another one.
And there's also like a... You know, you can't just have that and as well have this whole like idea of like, you know, oh, is the ghost just in his head or not? Because then you have the whole. I think it ruins the logic of it as well. You know, if you're going to go for this and have things in the background, then that ghost exists, because otherwise, that ghost is standing there for the audience, because the character not seeing it is, you know, and for it to be in the character's head doesn't make any sense. And that actually happens in the retreat at one point. There's like the huge knight who says knee is standing over the main character, and I was waiting for it to say knee and it didn't. And you're kind of sitting there going, well, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't try and like go, oh, is this all in his head, or like what's happening, and have this big ominous figure standing over him at the campfire. It's like, no, it's real then. If it's standing there, is he imagining this thing standing over him just randomly? Like, fuck off.
Yeah, so it doesn't work on many levels. Again, Wendigo is like just nonsense. So Ravenous is definitely the best of these movies. Now, I really liked it. You're a little cold on it, it seems.
Yeah, I mean,
but I still think I think it's fun. I think it's fun.
Yeah.
And I think it's appropriately fun, and it's silly and it's absurd. But I mean, I take your point of like there are points where you're like, this scene's going on a bit.
Yeah. It seems to be very well regarded. Now when it came out, it kind of didn't do well critically or commercially, I think. But it seems to be one of those like what do you call them? Again, my mind just blanks at the worst times. A cult classic. That's what I was looking for. Yeah,
you're looking for the word.
I was looking for the word cult classic. The words. Okay, yes. Sorry. Yes. So yeah, it seems like it's getting a bit of a resurgence. Like everyone kind of, there's a lot of articles about the unsung gem and stuff like this. Where I didn't read them, but I was like looking at the title, going, okay, I might read them after this just for a bit of a laugh, or maybe to prove myself wrong. I'll be like, oh my god, they're right.
Yeah. So I really like it. I liked it when I first saw it on Channel 4 in like 2003 or 2002 or whenever it was that I first saw this film. Again, because it was something I had never heard of, and I saw Robert Carlyle, and I was like, oh, it's the guy from Trainspotting. That's all I was thinking at that time, because I was like 17 and an idiot. And I was really surprised by it, and I really, really, really liked it. I think as far as education about Wendigos go, now, I think they talk a lot about, in vague terms, about the legend of the Wendigo in Wendigo and The Retreat. In a way, again, in a way that we discussed, that feels very tacked on in both of those films.
Yeah, it's almost like those movies are that boring that I can't even really remember what they say about it. Like, there's brief hints at it, like that uncle character in The Retreat.
Yeah, he's there just. He's got a weird picture on the wall for them specifically to ask about.
Yeah,
and then they're like, "What's that weird picture?" That's a Wendigo. Ooh. Let me tell you about Wendigos in a way that it's not actually really going to come up later.
Yep.
But I'm going to talk about Wendigos in an attempt to justify everything that happens after.
Everyone needs an exposition uncle.
Yeah, he's the exposition uncle, so he tells us a bit about Wendigos. Not a lot. They don't. I feel like in that one they do sort of talk about the cannibalism aspect, but it seems like it takes a back seat in everything but Ravenous, to be honest. They have him eat the guy in it to be like, ooh, look. But I feel like that was just because they wanted to do that.
I mean, that seems to be as well, like, the whole thing about Wendigos, as far as I know, seems to be like it mainly about the eating of the flesh. They seem like an embodiment of like kind of greed and gluttony and stuff like that.
Greed and desperation. It seems really like desperation leading to greed.
Yeah, where like the whole idea. I mean, I haven't looked deeply into Wendigo lore, but the kind of what I have gleaned from certain things, probably mainly Until Dawn. Is that just what you're saying there? The desperation that makes you eat the person, and then it's like once you get a taste for it, you can't be satisfied.
Yeah, I have read a fair bit about it in the past. Because I was fascinated by the idea of it. In fact, it's one of the reasons why I started watching the TV show Supernatural.
Yeah,
because I was reading about Wendigos at the time, and I just noticed that there was like the second episode or something was just called Wendigo, and I was like, I might actually want to watch that. Maybe that's all right to give it a chance. And then I ended up watching like the first like 5 seasons of it, and it was pretty damn good. Now, I will say that they maybe handled it actually better than any of these films did, as far as being close. Because the problem with it is that I'll say the problem, but the thing about Wendigos is that it's a folk legend. It's one of those sort of handed down oral traditions.
Yeah.
So, depending on who you ask, there are different things about Wendigos, about their sort of physical form, and whether or not they're a spirit, or whether or not they were once a man that became this thing. Now, the prevalent one, and maybe it's just because it's more easy to interpret into a modern horror context, is this used to be a human that became a monster, as opposed to a spirit that was out there that has possessed someone. But there's usually a person involved at some point who has, become a Wendigo, which they do sort of address in The Retreat and Wendigo, but they do it in the vaguest ways. They do have the exposition man who shows up to tell the child in Wendigo about Wendigos.
Yeah.
But again, that just feels like crowbarred in.
Yeah.
Ravenous is the one that seems to cover it on the mechanical level most sort of expertly, let's say. They don't talk a lot about the legends. They have a wee bit from the native people who are there in the film.
Yeah, it's kind of like which is good. Yeah, it's they're just getting bits and pieces, and it gives more room for them to kind of like they're not sticking to like a strict thing.
Yeah.
Or a strict legend of it. But yeah, like I mean, it's the one definitely explains it the best, I would say.
Yeah.
But that's not difficult. I mean, I think that Always Sunny in Philadelphia episode where Dee and Charlie think they eat human flesh, probably
and then they become ravenous themselves.
Has more to do with Wendigos than Wendigo and The Retreat.
Yes. So I think as far as like covering Wendigos from a technical aspect, Ravenous is 100% the one.
Yeah.
No, it just seems like in that it doesn't seem like they're like invincible as such. They're just way more hardy than you would be otherwise, especially if they've just eaten people.
And it seems to be that would it be that the more people you eat, the stronger you? I'm not even sure, to be honest. It doesn't matter too much in the fiction,
No.
Like if you were to eat 2 people and I ate 1, are you stronger than me?
Yeah, or does it plateau at some point where you're just like, oh, don't eat them all at once because you want to just keep eating a wee bit at a time.
Like, can you eat enough people?
Maximum power.
Can you eat enough people that you get like Wolverine's like healing ability?
I don't know. I mean, is that the lesson then? So this guy's coming up through the floor here. So if I was to say, now, could you just eat yourself, or would you have to carve something off another?
Well, see, you're getting the strength of that person, so surely that's a vicious cycle. That's like the snake eating itself, kind of thing.
Right. So if I was to carve a bit off of you,
Yeah, just eat my legs.
and you were to carve your entire legs.
Yeah, why not?
Well, that's actually that was the first point where I laughed in Ravenous actually when they talked about they're cooking up the guy's legs.
Yeah.
That was brilliant. So we just carve a little bit off your leg,
Yep.
and I'll carve a little bit off my leg, and we'll fry it up in the frying pan here
Yeah.
and make a wee bacon putty. And then we'll just hold this right. You just hold this guy down, and I'll just slap him.
Yeah. Slap some sense into
You
it.
know, do some brother bullying of
Or-
lean on his arms with my knees and just slap him in the face.
Or if we've got any bear traps, jump in that with him.
Yeah, well, this is a hunter's cabin, but they don't seem to have bear traps, so I think I'll hold his arms behind his back and you pummel him. We'll do the big brother punishment. Okay. Well, I have to say, John, you taste delicious fried.
It's all the fatty foods I eat.
Indeed, I feel the energy flowing through me like I don't know, like a sewage system. So that's all we have time for this week. We are on Twitter. We are at 7day apocalypse. That is at numeral 7day apocalypse. If you want to email us, you can get us on filmcast at thisweeksapocalypse.com. That's filmcast at thisweeksapocalypse.com. Okay, John. Bon appetit. Yum yum yum. Grab a hold of him. Right.
Yeah.